Welcome everyone to the L7C podcast NBA special edition part 2. If you are listening to this podcast, that means you are listening to part 2 of the NBA special. At the beginning of the summer, part 1, we talked about the finals. We talked about way too early odds for the 2025 champ. We talked about the Cavs coaching opening, the Lakers picking JJ, the passing of icons, Jerry West and Bill Walton. Hopefully, by the time you listen to this as well, the Cavs do have their head coach. If you're listening to this and they don't, that's going to be problematic for us. But we have the NBA aficionado with us, Mr. Evan Debo, for part 2. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing good, Martin. We're coming up on draft. This is always a fun pod for me. Just thinking about the giant soap opera that is the NBA offseason with the draft, free agency, trades. The next 9 to 12 months of basketball is shaped by what the next 35 days look like in terms of the offseason moves. So I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's like you said, it's off season. It's very interesting to see how it goes. Off season in sports is usually a fan base's time to dream because at this point, anyone can win the title because games have not been played yet. So that I do enjoy for the fans. But let's just get right into it, Evan. Free agency is beginning.
Yep.
You were actually the first person to tell me this, that the rules for free agency did change this year.
They did. So, again, it was always this weird, hey, we're going to fine NBA teams, right, for negotiating with players before you can officially do so and free agency starts. Well, they had thought better of that with, some recent changes to collective bargaining and league rules that, once the clock strikes zero, essentially on your NBA, you have an NBA championship at the end of the NBA finals, so you can start negotiating with your own free agents that are up. So your restricted, your unrestricted stuff to try to retain them. So, again, nothing can be quote unquote official until July 6th coming up, but you can begin to start working on deals with your basically your folks on your existing roster. And we've already seen an instance of that with reportedly Pascal Siakam, agreeing to a large extension to stay with the Pacers that acquired him from Toronto earlier in the year. But yeah, brand new this year.
Yeah, it's very, like you said, it just eliminates some stuff from previous years to be like, all right, as soon as the day after the last game of the NBA Finals, just have at it. Start negotiating with people on your roster. That's the day after. Then June 30th, NBA teams negotiating with other upcoming free agents. And then July 6th, you're allowed to sign those free agents, other ones to contracts. And we're right in the middle of that time frame because we're recording on the 23rd. So what are your expectations for this year's free agency?
I think there's a couple interesting dominoes to fall on free agency. It's really weird that I mean, it's not weird because I think we know why, but it's really weird that Paul George has not signed a deal yet. I mean, Kawhi signed his extension back in, was it like late January, February, something like that? Definitely earlier 2024. And here we are in June, and you've got a guy about ready to become an unrestricted free agent that you sold the farm for back in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
to Oklahoma City, who still own all your picks and stuff to acquire him. And he has not signed yet. And then you've got the Philadelphia 76ers looming with giant cap space. I mean, I think they only have Embiid, Maxi, and like one other player on the books. So, I mean, they've got max space. The Orlando Magic have max space. He's not going to the Orlando Magic. But Philly's that team that, whether it's just to get what he wants out of it, which is he wants the max years. And I mean, they only gave Kawhi 3, and I think they want to land somewhere right at 3 as well with him. Despite the fact that, he's played a lot more games than Kawhi has. He's been banged up himself, sure, over the years, but that's very interesting to me. A lot of people are talking about James Harden as well as a free agent. Again, I think obviously his value is nowhere near what it once was. But, again, things could get frisky in a couple of different places. And then you obviously have all the different sign and trade capabilities. It'll be interesting to see on the free agent side, but I think you'll see a lot more of the sign and trade potential that kind of expands your immediate bubble of folks that are unrestricted free agents that could move, Martin. So,
Yeah, and if you've listened to this pod for the years that it's been on, I don't know if anyone's given the Clippers, Paul George, any more grief than I have, but he is a very good player, and the fact that he has not been signed, like you already says, is actually very puzzling for me. That feels like it. He's going to listen to all options because maybe the Clippers are lowballing him, which I don't understand why you would lowball Paul George because I can't believe I'm going to say he's been more reliable than Kawhi Leonard during this experiment. So they need to get that done. I
the
mean,
max the max that the Clippers can give him is 221 million for 4 years. They gave Kawhi 3 years, 152 million in January. He wants that extra year. He's from LA. He wants to stay in LA. But again, there's a lot. He's 34 years old. He'll be 38 at the end of a 4-year deal. But I mean, the Paul George prototype, that lengthy wing who can do it on both sides of the ball. I mean, that's what you have in Brown and Tatum. That's what you have in, that's what you have in a LeBron. That's what you have in a Kawhi. That's what you have in, a Luka, is that lengthy wing, who's just a next level taker. He's a commodity in this league, and if he doesn't get those 4 years, Daryl Morey would be happy to give it to him for a little less money.
now with the Daryl Morey thing, I've seen some people talk about it. I guess there's some validity to me, but want to hear your thoughts. People are saying with the Morey thing, it might be hard for that because obviously you just said James Harden, who's on the Clippers, was just there. So, players talk and all of that. Would that hinder Morey to get Paul George or any star? Because it's like, hey, James just told us you did him dirty. So why would I go there? How are you going to make sure I don't get done dirty?
No, I think that's a possibility, that those conversations have happened or would happen. And obviously, James is motivated to say that to try to keep him in LA if he's going to stay in LA too. So, it'll be interesting to see. I want to make sure I was specific real quick. Going back to Maxey. Maxey's a restricted free agent. He's going to re-sign in with Philly, but the Sixers have the right to match essentially. So, but I mean, Paul George is the interesting domino. You saw Joel roll up to him at the ESPN or the TNT desk during the finals, and
ESPN,
and he had the awkward eye contact and the you never know kind of looking on. But and then also too, they got his coach for him, but LeBron has a player option. We've all but heard he will be opting out, and trying to do that opt out, get more money with the expansion of the salary cap roll and what you can offer on like a 1+1 kind of deal again. But yeah, you never know. We'll see.
That's interesting. Yeah, because with the Sixers too, because Tobias is a free agent. Jimmy Butler is a free agent. I don't know what the Heat are going to do there. Another one that's surprising to me.
Jimmy's not a free agent.
I thought he's a free agent this year.
I don't have him on my list.
Or is he entering his last year?
He might be entering his, but he's unhappy in Miami, and Pat Riley's dunking all over him. That is a divorce bound to happen. So
that's okay. So
yeah.
My one that is surprising to me because of a loyalty standpoint that had Clay.
Yeah.
But he honestly, he's one of those situations where he should have signed his deal, the last deal they gave him, because honestly, his play down the stretch, he lost a lot of money.
He did. And he thinks it's one of those things where they think they're worth way more, and they hold their own team hostage and say, you don't like me, you don't care about me. And they're trying to be pragmatic, and you can't, there's a right and a wrong way. It's just about obviously what the end dollar amount is for how to like pay for past work provided. So obviously Clay helped to get you to 4 rings. How much are they paying for that versus what he's currently able to provide on the court? Like that's always the tough part. I mean, you see it in different capacities around the league of the people want paid for, what all I've done here, but like Clay's not getting lift on his shot anymore. He's 2 or 3 steps slow defensively, offensively. I mean, he's still a capable player. I mean, if I were Orlando needing some shooting, I'd say, listen, man, we got a bag of cash for you. We're an up and comer. Come on down. But we'll see where things land. If Philly loses out on the George sweepstakes, and there was discussion last week that they don't want to wait around to see what that's like, and they've got to keep moving ahead. But DeMar DeRozan isn't unrestricted right now too. That could be somebody to potentially come in and you're obviously going to get DeMar is nowhere near what he used to be, but DeMar is, I mean, when you're comparing to Tobias Harris, I mean, come on, let's be real. That's an upgrade. Some other interesting folks, like I would love to see a contender. I'd love to see like an Oklahoma City go like get a Nick Claxton as a post player alongside Chet. I think that would be huge. Monk just re-signed with for a sizable deal, a 6-man with Sacramento. If Orlando misses out on just knowing they need shooting, if they miss out on like a Klay Thompson, I could see them outbidding the Nuggets and what they're able to offer for KCP. There's still one of the sleepers, I think, in this class too, Miles Bridges. Obviously, the off the court stuff and allegations are atrocious, but he's still I don't even want to say but, because that almost sounds like I'm trying to justify it, and I'm not. He is a productive basketball player. I think you can put them in two different buckets of you've got a questionable character, individual, what have you, but he does still have a relationship with players. He and Darius Garland have been seen courtside, at WNBA games. There could be the Cavs don't have the money to sign him. It would have to be like a sign and trade, but he could be somebody who could, if a team takes a chance on the off-court stuff, that he could swing a team progressively. And then you also have, you've got other cap space teams like, Houston that, could be looking for, trying to add some vets and stuff as well too. So, I mean, Gary Trent Jr., Royce O'Neal are phenomenal 3-point shooters. The Cavs got to decide what they're going to do with Isaac Okoro, their lockdown defender, who they did not offer an extension to. He's a restricted free agent. They can match. Got D'Angelo Russell floating out there that could be frisky as, maybe as a 6-man or something at this point in his career. So, I mean, there's a lot of folks around the league in the margins I think could be of value switching up teams. Russell Westbrook, Kelly Oubre, Derrick Jones Jr. we talked about in the previous pod. Jonas Valanciunas could be a really good 6-man big to come in and just eat up boards and keep possessions alive and stuff as well. So, but it'll be really interesting to see, Martin. Do you have any of those names I've just read off resonate with you of like, when I read one of those names, did you say, ooh, like I can envision, just kind of like I did with, Nick Claxton, OKC, you're like, ooh, if they go there, I would love to see. I think that would amplify this team this way. Any of those names jump out to you?
I would go with the Claxton OKC because OKC's biggest one of their biggest reasons they lost to Dallas is because they were giving them too many offensive rebounds and they had no paint protection when Luka drove and then they threw the alley oops to their bigs. So I feel like if you got anyone down there who could rebound at a consistent rate offensively and defensively, that hinders a lot of OKC's weaknesses. And that could propel them to maybe now going from a second round team to a conference finals team or maybe beyond.
Martin, we talked a little bit about the timelines again. July 6th is the big trigger for official announcements. Beyond your own players that teams can currently be at the time of this recording, negotiating with. June 30th is another big trigger date. Used to be July 1st. So where each NBA player starting at 6:00, or each NBA team can start negotiating with all other upcoming free agents, starting at 6:00 on June 30th. But before any of that happens, Martin, we have an NBA draft coming up this week.
Mm-hmm.
By all accounts, this is kind of a dud. It could go many different ways. I always like to think that there's at least optimism and potential for surprises, because when people are so down on folks, like your expectations are so low that, if 5 years from now, if we're talking about this draft and like, ooh, at 23, such and such got a really good pick. And, like we obviously nobody knew at the time, but I think there's value to be found in the deeper portions of the draft with so much uncertainty more than other years. But I mean, at the top, it's almost like, hey, congrats, Atlanta, you won the number one overall pick. And I mean, are you thrilled about, or do you know about any of the options? So, Martin, what are your thoughts for how the top of the draft might shake out, what teams might do, et cetera?
I think with drafts like these, where people who don't have the quote unquote big names or names that have been going through the ringer this year through college or overseas or haven't gotten the biggest attention from ESPN plug, ESPN or any media outlets, I think this is where GMs and scouts really show how good they are at their job because no matter how bad a draft is, players are going to contribute one way or another. So if you're a GM and you're able to find that, I don't want to even say diamond, but that good player in the sea of people who think it's allegedly mediocrity, that just shows how good you are. But again, these players, I really don't, I try not to really get into like draft stuff like this because I don't know each player's worth ethic. Because they could come in and we might not be talking about them at all. And then they work 2, 3, 4 years from now, they're a solid contributor on a playoff team. I mean, the lifespan in the NBA or any sport is like 4 to 5 years. If any of these players get to 10, 15, 20 years, then that means they were solid contributors in the league. Now, there might not be any franchise changing players like last year what we had with Victor Wembanyama, and that was a hype about him. But we don't know that yet until these players play out and do what they want. I mean, I think one of the best of recent examples, a lot of people were down on the Anthony Edwards draft.
Mm-hmm.
And because, I mean, I watched Anthony at college at Georgia and all of that. I just want to, and people were down on that draft. And then again, that was the 2020 draft. Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, LaMelo Ball, Patrick Williams, Okoro, Obi Toppin, Jalen Smith, Tyrese Halliburton. Like a lot of people were down on this draft. And and if you look through these names, there have been a lot of players on here who have contributed. Heck, I mean, Anthony Edwards, before they got smoked by Dallas, was about to be the heir apparent and the shooting guard of the Michaels and the Kobe's. And well, you would have said that in 2020? No, you said this draft class sucked. Anthony Edwards, great player. Tyrese Halliburton, great player. Tyrese Maxey in that draft, great player. So again, there's plenty of other people on this draft too. Those are just people I wanted to name. Like Obi Toppin, good contributor for a team. Like there's players in this league. Shoot, one of our own. Isaac Okoro in this draft as well. Like there's players in the league, man. It's up to Cole Anthony. Also, he's a Cole Anthony, good player. So we just gotta see what they develop, man. That's Emmanuel Quickly's pretty good. We just talked about him in part one of the special. Patrick Pritchard. I mean, Desmond Bain, he's good. We just gotta see. We gotta see what happens.
Martin,
We don't control how they work in the gym.
yeah, we don't. There's a lot of question marks there. So the Atlanta Hawks have the number one overall pick, followed by Washington Wizards and followed by the Houston Rockets. There's a lot of mock drafts, Martin. There's a lot of projections, and especially it's all over the place with a draft like this. There's definitely high European and international pedigree.
Yep.
And at the top of the draft in terms of where teams might go.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the clock for the Hawks right now, number one. You can have any player you want. Who are you taking? The supplement, you assume what's going to be either DeJounte or Trey left in the dust, depending on how trades and stuff shake out, but to complement them and to continue to try to climb in the East.
I honestly think I think Wembanyama's got everyone on the France kick. I think they're going to take Zachary from France.
Yep. I'm a fan. From what I've seen, I like the little bit more length with Sar, but I've heard Sar's been like, I don't even want to talk to the Hawks, and which is why I think that the Wizards are kind of slated in a lot of drafts to take him too. But you both got some ball handling between the two of them, between Reisiker and Alex Sar, both from France, playing in two different leagues. French league for Reisiker, and then the NBL for Alex Sar. You've got two guys who can handle the ball. They're definitely lengthy, their size. So they're the playmaking kind of 3-4 there. So I mean, it's and more of the four post player for Alex Sar. But again, it's we just don't know what we don't know. I mean, I hate to say that. So
No, it's the
Martin, let's
truth.
talk.
It's the truth.
What was that?
It's the truth. We don't know.
Let's talk a little bit about in terms of folks we have seen collegiately. There's a lot of talk about, so Reed Shepherd's projected in a number of drafts to go number 3 to the Rockets out of Kentucky. So he's on the smaller side of things. But phenomenal shooter. You're the Rockets, you're the Pistons, you're the Hornets. You just gotta keep drafting best available and see who sticks when the dust all settles and stuff, because you're bad and you need to get better. So, any thoughts on Reed?
That he will be the last Kentucky freshman to get drafted that high from the now Arkansas head coach Calipari.
Yes, he will. Um, Martin, jumping down the list, another name that I like. So Cody Williams is the brother of Jalen Williams of
Mhm.
Oklahoma City. A really good freshman year at Colorado. He's projected to go somewhere between 4 and 7. Whether it's another wing for the Pistons, or another wing for the Spurs, or another wing for the Pistons, or Hornets. I absolutely think there's value in there. Martin, thoughts on Stephen Castle, Stephon Castle?
The UConn freshman.
Yep.
I will say he's not my. I have no problem with him. I would say he. I was going to say he's not my UConn player who I would want. Maybe because I want OKC to get rebounders. Like I think Donovan Clingan is going to actually be pretty good. His center from that
I've got Book
championship.
Night vibes for some reason, because
You
it's
got
the
you
Hornets
got who
too.
vibes?
Book Night, same college team, same pro team. I think I want to give Cass a little bit more benefit of the doubt that he's better than what James Book Knight did. But I mean, it's that kind of draft. Um, Donovan Klingman, or
I do like
Donovan
Donovan.
Klingan,
I do
the
like
Portland,
Donovan. Mhm.
also another team in dire need of being able to uh, just continue to acquire assets and try to work with some of their young players and stuff. A core piece of why UConn was able to go back to back. He's got the height, can play make a little bit from the elbows, but I mean he's your big rim running guy. But you've also got DeAndre Ayton there too. So I mean, do they try to big up um, like Denver and Minnesota?
Well, you need bigs to beat those teams.
You do.
It's just, I mean, it was proven. I mean, you need bigs to compete with the Denver and even still with like an LA, like you, or even out east with like a Joel. Like you need a solid big who can rebound or heck throw some fouls in to keep up with some of these bigs who are starting to dominate the league.
Martin, there's a player projected to go anywhere from the lottery to 5 or 6 picks post lottery that we really don't know where they're going to go, or how that I've really struggled with. How are they going to translate to the NBA?
Mhm.
And that's Purdue center Zach Edey, 25 and 12 a game for Purdue. It just dominant at the college level. But I mean, he doesn't have. We know what is required of NBA bigs, especially in this day and age, in terms of foot speed and I just imagine Zach Edey on an island against insert speedy guard here on a switch. Like that dude's going to get run off the court real quick. Like, you know what I mean? So like it's so hard for me to project where he's going to go and who he can contribute for and to. Do you have any thoughts on what might be a good landing spot for him where he can kind of develop and grow a little bit while also providing, some much needed rebounding and shot blocking and stuff for a team maybe lacking some front court depth?
I know, like you said, like the highest spot I see him going would be 12 to OKC. That'd be the highest. It's that, like you said, with the foot speed, it's not great. But I think the saving grace with him is that, I mean, there's another big who was picked in a Taco Bell commercial who was slow as dirt and cannot jump and all that, but his skill set provides him a way that he's the best player in the league now, and that's Jokic. I mean, Jokic can't guard any speedy guard. I mean, he's not known for his defensive thing. Obviously, he's a better offensive player.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's a better offensive player than Zach in terms of passing and setting up teammates and all of that. But that'd be one of the closest things. It's just like, this NBA now, it's switch everything and good luck to you. But I do feel like if you get him in the right spot, you get him with the right developmental staff, he can be a solid contributor. And that's honestly what you're looking for in a draft more than a transformative. Unless it's a change your franchise type player like a LeBron, but you're looking for people who can help you win the title
So
in
let's
any
start
way.
let's start looking at the picks here. So Spurs, I think, are set at center for the rest of ever at 8.
Yeah.
9, the Grizz, you've got Triple J. They did just move on from Steven Adams. So, but I find it hard to believe that it just doesn't seem like a fit in Memphis, but I could be wrong. The Jazz are set at center with Walter Kessler. Bulls still have Vucevic, and we'll see what they do with Drummond. The Thunder pick at 12. That could potentially be a spot needing some front court size. 13 with the Kings, you've got Sabonis. But 7 and 14, you've got 2 Portland picks there, and again, you've got DeAndre Ayton that you traded for. So, I mean, I really could see him sliding a little bit. Depending on how some of these go. I can't imagine Miami and just a guy who can't defend foot speed wise fitting in any of their schemes.
No, it wouldn't
Sixers
work.
are set
Work there.
dependent on if they, maybe as a backup or another Paul Reed supplement behind Joel. I don't know. I really think he could slide a little bit. I don't know where I would peg him. Like maybe Toronto at 19. I don't know. And that's another Canadian guy come home. Like that's where I would peg him to start, but we'll see. He's one of the I don't mean to belabor it, but he's one of the guys that's just so hard to peg on. We know he has value. It's just, again, it's all about fit for these kids. But Martin, let's jump down to, so Cleveland picks at 20. So this is one of the every other years where they get their pick and they don't owe it to Utah for Donovan Mitchell. They have a giant glaring small forward hole where they need somebody 6'8" to 6'10" who's athletic, who can defend within the scheme, but also can help put up points and doesn't need to play make as much. Knowing that you have, as of right now, still Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. I've got 3 or 4 guys that stand out to me, but you've looked over the list. Who would you be like, yep, I'm looking forward to Summer League, and I think this is somebody who, could maybe come in and, obviously start at the end of the bench, but maybe work their way into the rotation at some point. Because that's really what we're talking about at pick 20 is somebody who can maybe crack your 8 to 10 man rotation and provide you some really good minutes. And then, down the road, you're hopeful that maybe they can work into a starter or something.
I've actually struggled with the Cavs thing because there was something I was going to say with the Edie thing to go into this. Is like, we're here talking day of recording on the Sunday. We have no idea what these GMs, because some of these picks might get traded to another team by the time you guys listen to this. So I'm even wondering if the Cavs are even going to keep this pick or if they're going to trade it. Like, that's where I've been stuck. And so I haven't been able to like really pinpoint who I would want the Cavs to take, because I don't know if they're going to trade this pick and like really try and get like an established player who's already in the league and like to really try and go for? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, that's possible. Maybe you could package, pick 20, a Karis LeVert, a sign and trade with Isaac Okoro, something along that, and try to, I mean, and they've still got
What about a sign and trade with Paul?
a sign trade with who?
Paul. Clippers
Paul.
sign Paul, and then we give him some picks, and we do a
I
sign
don't
trade
think
with
we got
him.
enough in the coffer as much as I'd love to. But now, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's so many different ways. I think that should be Cleveland's goal. In all honesty, should be not a hey, we're going to find somebody to come in and help us get over the Boston and Milwaukee hump at pick 20. You should be looking for somebody more established because their timeline is significantly more aggressive than it was a couple years ago, especially if Donovan Mitchell resigns. But if we're keeping the pick, we're drafting at 20. There's a couple names that I've done
Okay.
some watching on, some reading on that I'd like to see. The first one, I don't think he'll make it to us, but is Colorado's Tristan da Silva, 4-year player for Colorado, 16 points, almost 40% shooting, 5 rebounds, and he's 6'8". So again, he doesn't necessarily have the physicality stuff, but by all accounts, heady player, understands his role within a system, is not trying to go out and ISO ball stuff. But I mean, he's a floor spacer, good feel for the game. Like those are all the kinds of things that, you're looking for out of that spot. And particularly on the length where, we've got smaller guards when you have Isaac Okoro in there and that's another small guard at 6'4", 6'5". So Tristan da Silva is a name that's towards the top of my list. Another one, let me keep scrolling here on the list, is Johnny Furphy out of Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Only 9 points a game as a freshman, wasn't asked to do a whole lot, but he's another lengthy 6'8" guy. He definitely doesn't have some of the physical strength that you're looking for per se from the 3 side. But again, we're talking like a 19-year-old kid, so he's got time to develop. And again, we need somebody to be kind of a knockdown shooter as well too, knowing that we've got creation from the guard set. Another name to keep an eye on that I do like too is Miami's freshman Keyshawn George. So 6'7", 6'8" wing, only 7.6 per game, 3 rebounds, 2.2 assists. I believe he's from where was it? It was like he's from some European country. I can't remember what it was, but so I mean, he's. I say that to say he's already done the United States acclimation and stuff with his freshman year with the Hurricanes. Another lengthy guy there that I think could add some value. And then the one that keeps coming up too is Daron Holmes. So obviously I think the Cavs. Behind Mobley and Allen, and when those guys get hurt, I mean, you need some size back there, and we are slim. So there's a 6'9" center, average 20, 8.5. Again, he's working on that 3-point shot, 38% in-state guy, playing at Dayton there too. I mean, it's been fun to watch some of those Flyer games with Daron Holmes. And then I lied. I'll throw in one more name that absolutely intrigues me, and that's Tyler Smith from the G League. So not a crazy impressive year for the G League and the G League Knights like last run here as a team itself, but has got that 3-and-D potential. He's got the size. He needs to work on his shooting. So that's the one downside is there's just, you hate hearing that in a draft is, I can't shoot the ball real well, but we've seen guys come in and if you got the work ethic and mentality that they do figure it out at some point. I mean, to some extent, but those are the names I'm looking for. And I put kind of Tristan da Silva up towards the top of my list.
Oh,
Maybe
enough.
a Kyle Filipowski too as a stretch 4 kind of in that marketing role potentially. So, I mean, I think I would be happy with any of those names I just mentioned.
Also, for the listeners, NBA draft June 26th. And this is going to be the first one. It's going to be 2 nights. First round, June 26th, and then Thursday, June 27th. I don't understand, Evan, how Wednesday the 26th could be at 8 p.m., but then the second round is at 4 p.m. on the
Makes zero sense.
27th. And let's just be honest, the reason this second round is going to be televised is because of one Mr. Bronny James, because that's probably where he's going to go. And just from a business standpoint, if you're looking for more ratings or more revenue because of that, wouldn't you have that past 5 o'clock EST when people get off work instead of 4 p.m.?
Yeah, I mean, I who knows where it's all gonna land. Again, you've got this weird thing with Bronny where you've got Rich Paul saying we're trying to find the best place for him. We're not, but we're only gonna work out for teams that are really gonna give him or interested in giving him a contract. We're not interested in two-way and like, well, if you want what's best for him, I mean, I don't even know if he's deserving of a two-way based on what we saw. He averaged under 5 points a game for USC last year and did not. The USC team was bad. I mean, Isaiah Collier's draft stock has sunk because of that as well too. So, I mean, I really think Bronny he should be back in college working on his game and improving upon himself. And I don't understand this. Let's push the envelope on the timeline for a guy that, again, if his name was literally anything else, was Steve Steverson. Not a question. He's not on his dad's merits alone is where we're at right now. In terms of, hey, we've seen the gifted physical prowess and genetics that his father has. Can this guy come in and at best case scenario, can he come in and be like a Marcus Smart type eventually? And maybe not even as much on the offensive side of the ball. Can he come in and be kind of like an Isaac Okoro type? That's the best case scenario for him. But again, part of me feels bad about the pressure, but at a certain point too, like you got to agree you're making the decisions on staying in the draft. You're making decisions on this, that, and the other. So, I mean, we'll see where it lands and we'll see where he ends up. He will end up on some team. It's just a matter of how and what that structure looks like and what the expectations are. So,
yeah. Anything else, Evan, on the draft?
No, I mean, like you said, I mean, I expect, especially with a draft as slim as this, I expect there to be a lot of draft and stash stuff towards the end with players that maybe, you'll see on summer league rosters, but maybe you won't see resurface even the best ones for like 2 to 3 years. So it'll be interesting to see how it all comes together. And yeah, I mean, the Lakers have that 55th pick. Are they going to use it on Bronny or figure something else out? Does Bronny go? Is there something crazy? Is Bronny go undrafted? I doubt that happens.
No.
I think just on wanting to do Clutch and Rich Paul a favor, there's 29 teams that are like, all right, well, you helped us get insert max player to, re-sign with us. We're going to throw you a bone here and draft them so you don't, so it makes Clutch look good, even if we don't think that there's a chance in heck that he's going to be of any standing. So,
right. With that being said, this was part 2 of the summer special. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C podcast. We'll be back post-draft to talk about the post-draft, where people went, where trades might have happened. By the
USA men's basketball.
Yep, USA men's basketball. Give a preview on that because the Olympics will be starting in a couple of weeks. And by that time, some of those players on the USA basketball team might be on different teams in the NBA. We do not know. We'll find out, though. So we'll be back. You don't got to wait a long time for your basketball fix. We're going to be back in about a couple weeks or so. With that being said, L7C Podcast signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C Podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.